So, I got to check this out for the first time in Atlanta at Blade Show 2023. I already know I love it. Hopefully it's as good as the one I tried at Blade Show. Already love this green micarta. I know this is gonna age very well. We got a beautiful brass backspacer. I do have videos on the original Biblio or the smaller Biblio. I had multiple of them. Let's check out this deployment. Oh yeah, that felt really good. Woo! Oh man, damn. Yeah, that detent is nice. One more time. Yeah, that's a clean braking. That's a nice detent. Thumb flick is really good. Reverse flick, of course. Oop, that was my fault. Reverse flick, of course, is really good. Really nice. This, man, this is possibly my new favorite Giant Mouse, and I know it's a honeymoon phase. I just got it, but the reason why I'm saying that is because I've always loved this profile. This profile, to me, the Biblio itself, I used to think was like one of the most attractive knives at the time, and it still is to me, but it was just a little too small. So that was I loved it, but it was just a little too small for me. This, however, is a great size, and we're gonna pull up some other Giant Mouses here in 1 second to show some size comparisons. This thing is glassy smooth. They did a really good job with the pivot, at least it seems. Access to the lock bar is generous. Love that. I hate when they mess that up. That's actually the reason why I dislike the Atelier, the Mini Grand, is because of that reason. This one's good. And then you can see the plunge grind sharpening choil exactly how we want to see it. The plunge grind is way before the edge, so you have tons of life to sharpen off of that. The blade steel's Elmax. This is one steel I think Giant Mouse actually does a really good job with. Now, I'm critical over, you know, a couple other steels, but as far as their Elmax, I have many knives in their Elmax that I have not had any issues with, that I think they've done a pretty good job with. Now, ergonomics, I can feel the clip back here. You know, it's a little tight because, you know, this isn't a huge knife. This is obviously larger than the original Biblio, but it's a phenomenal size. So this, you basically get a perfect 4-finger grip right here, but the way it's made is to choke up. So now this makes it way more ergonomic. You got really good effective jimping. This is the kind of jimping that will stop you from sliding. The geometry is beautiful. Love this geometry. So, and that was one thing I loved about the original Biblio, was the blade shape, geometry, and just overall design. This knife is a knife that, you know, it functions like a tool at the highest level, you know, at least for like utility cuts and opening things up and the things you use for daily EDC tasks. This little amount of belly. So it does sweep up. So you do have belly, so you can cut down on a flat surface. You need to cut a rope or whatever, or go down on a plastic zip tie or something like that. But, you know, the one grip that's not gonna be the most comfortable is the reverse grip. Now you can do it, but the flipper tab does get in the way. So if you were gonna do it, you're probably gonna, what's that called? Gorilla grip. I think that's what it's called, Gorilla grip it. And maybe that would work, but these pinch grips though, man, oh man, you have a lot of control over this knife. Like I said, I can't wait for this micarta to age and patina. Here is another example, the Jutland. This was my favorite, one of my favorites. So I have a couple favorites, but I'll tell you exactly which one's my absolute favorite. So this one was my favorite until, and this is the Jutland, by the way. It does come in different versions. So this is the one in burlap and Vanitas steel. This one is an Elmax. I have sharpened it and tested it. Ooh, I think it's got a good edge on it. Again, the Jutland, I highly recommend the Jutland. If you like trailing points or clip points, this is a great example of a trailing point or clip point. But here it is next to it really quick. You can see it's a bit shorter, but it's bigger in other ways. Now, my favorite one after this one wound up becoming this one, the Tribeca. So the Tribeca is in my opinion, it feels extremely well done. The way the detent breaks, the way the action is, just has a nice crispiness to it that I really like. Same thing with the thumb and reverse flick. Ooh. Really, really snappy. I love the sound of the lockup, and then ergonomics are really good. You know, the blade, I love the whole profile. However, I do like the Giant Mouse, the Ace Biblio more. A couple reasons why. One, lower tip. So if you look at this in use, this is going to be way more practical for me. This will do just about anything I would want a knife to do. You can poke with it, you can utility cut with it, you know, you can cut down on surface like I was saying before. This one, the tip is a little bit higher. So yes, I can still use the tip, but there's no way I'm going to get the amount of leverage I would get into this tip as I would on this one. This one might be able to plunge into something a little bit better, but that's, you know, that's kind of debatable. But you couldn't debate that this thing's going to be a better EDC blade shape overall. I don't think you could. Maybe you could, but I wouldn't. Now, a couple more just really quick, just to do some more size comparisons to this guy. Here is the Ace Corta. And you can see it's larger than the Ace Corta in, you know, in pretty much every way, shape, and form. However, if you like compact knives, this is an absolute banger. I really, really, really like this thing. I think this is one of the most underrated knives. I love this micarta. I actually might even prefer this micarta over this one. I don't know. Yeah, I probably would. I really like this stuff. I'll show you some more here in 1 second, but it's using the M390 steel. Riyadh is the one who did this. Riyadh did I believe that's who did it. Riyadh did a really good job on it. The access to the lock bar, it's incredibly smooth. The detent is probably the crispest detent on any Giant Mouse, next to the Tribeca. I would say, man, they're pretty tight. And especially if you know what? I'll just say this. That's one thing that I have noticed that Giant Mouse has really gotten down pat is their detents lately. Man, oh man. Because I could bring up this example, the Jutland, you know, the Tribeca, the Corta, all have phenomenal detents. Then you have the Sonoma, which is a model that's been out for a while. I freaking love this thing. If you like the slim, slick designs, kind of like the Rio. I know I'm pulling up Giant Mouse after Giant Mouse. I like Giant Mouse a lot. Of course, I have my criticisms, but overall, there's a bunch of things I absolutely love about Giant Mouse, and I'm going to go over them here in 1 second. Then I will talk about the negatives. So the Rio, Magna Cut steel. We have denim micarta or blue micarta. I'm not sure if it's actually denim. I think it is denim though. But great knife. It's sleek. It's slim. You know, if you like this style knife, meaning sleek and slim, this is a large knife, but it's still pretty slim. This brings it to a drop point. So you're kind of getting not the same. This is obviously slimmer than this one, but it's the same idea, you know, as far as, you know, the size, thickness, length, but this one has, in my opinion, an even better blade shape. This is a very useful blade shape. The geometry could be a little bit thinner, but it's fine. Great access to the lock bar, phenomenal detent. Love, love, love the micarta. And then, you know what? Actually, let's go into it. So, what do I love about Giant Mouse? So one thing I love about them is their micarta. I think they do some of the absolute best micarta out of any company. They have some of the most highest quality micarta. Now they are mostly made in Italy. They do have some of them made, you know, by like Riyadh, and I think that's the only other one besides Italy. So Italy has some of the best micarta, in my opinion. I think it's very good quality. I think not only, in one way you can tell good quality, somebody asked me this the other day, how can you tell quality micarta versus not? Well, one thing is the consistency in the fibers. So you see how the fiber pattern is very, very consistent. You don't see a bunch of breaks and splotches and stuff. There's a little bit of color difference, but the fibers are all the exact same. The next thing is the texture. You know, there's different types of micarta, so I'm not saying they all should have a tacky feeling or a smooth feeling, but depending on what you want, you should consider that, because there's some that are polished, you know, that are very, very slick. There's some that are fibrous, like this one, which is going to patina and age very well. So just depending on your style, I like both. I really, truly like both. I like polished micarta, and I like the micarta that absorbs. But yeah, just the consistency in the fibers, and then also the color. The color is a huge indicator into quality. You'll notice that lower quality micarta is a little bit more splotchy. Like, yeah, the fibers are pretty similar in this, but you see how you can barely see them? It's almost like they're non-existent. You know, and over time they will become non-existent. There's no texture to it. Another one, you can see this, it's the color is just very bland. Now, good quality micarta, I guess you could say, is even blander, because this does have more of a green color to it compared to this. But real micarta, good quality micarta, ages and it'll turn green. So over time, it's going to start turning greener and greener and greener. And it's not like green, you know, but that's just what it's called, is green micarta. But there's brown micarta, there's black micarta, there's blue micarta, there's all kinds of micarta, different kinds. But you can really see right here, like, the difference in, like I said, the fibers, how consistent they are, the type of fibers, the type of pattern used. Anyways, so what are some more good things I love about them? I like that most of them are made in Italy. So I do like that most of them are made in Italy. I do think that their action has gotten insanely good. Very, very happy to see that. I do think overall their fit, finish, and tolerances have gotten better. Now, I had one poor experience, two poor experiences in the past, like, year. One was the Atelier with the lock bar access. I think that was a huge miss on their end. That it just doesn't have lock bar access, and it winds up becoming very irritating to disengage. But you could say the fit and finish and everything else of that knife was top notch. That was my only real complaint. But the next one was a Jutland. I have another one, and it came rough. It came very rough. Now, they replaced it. They sent me a new one. So, you know, it's not that big of a deal, and the new one was fine. But, you know, it just is what it is. Now, as far as this guy right here, yeah, I'm going to say it right now. This is my absolute new favorite giant mouse. I already knew I loved the Biblio. So this just takes it to another level for me. What a badass knife. I could even say, man, they could even go a little bit larger and I would love it. This is a great size knife. And that detent, the comfort of the flipper tab is not uncomfortable, I should say. It's not comfortable, but it's not uncomfortable. The detent braking is just perfectly tuned for this shaped flipper tab. And then the lock bar access, you know, because it's jimped right here, you have some texturing. Now, my first Biblio, that was a little sharp, but in this case, it feels a little bit softer. It doesn't feel as sharp as that one. So, negatives. Now, we could go down a rabbit hole. Oh yeah, wait, more positives. So the other things I love about them is that they are made in Italy. I do like to hear that. I love, you know, and when they do deal with China, they go to Riyadh, which I absolutely think that's a smart idea. If you're going to go there. Now, there's a couple other companies that are fine, but you know, Riyadh, in my opinion, is going to be probably the top-notch best that you could use over there. But overall, most of them are made in Italy, which I do appreciate, and I do like that. The next thing is, as far, you know what, let's just go to negatives, because you guys are caring about the negatives, right? What are some negatives? So as far as this knife goes, I don't have anything. It's T8s all the way around. The action's insane. It's perfectly centered. No failure. Rock solid lockup. So, you know, as far as this one goes, I'm not going to say there's any negatives right now. Just double checking stuff. But I almost thought there was detent lash, but no, there's not. Yeah, it's fine. All right, so negatives as far as Giant Mouse goes. My biggest negative would be that they run their steel soft. Now, like I said, I think they do a good job with their LMAX, and I think that they should, stick with what they do well. I think that's a good idea. But their M390 is usually done soft. Now, the Corta that I pulled up, this is done by Rhett, and Rhett does a good job with it. So, that's fine. So there is examples of them doing a good job, Giant Mouse. But as far as their Italian stuff, they seem to want to run their steels towards toughness rather than edge retention, which I don't think is a good idea in 2024 when it comes to the EDC community. We have learned so much in the past 10 years about steels that I think we've overcame like 100 years of information. And especially when it comes to folding knives and pocket knives, like this is not a knife I'm going to be prying, chopping, batoning, or anything like that. So I'm not worried so much about the toughness. I want my edge retention. I want this thing to take and hold a good edge. And the harder the steel is, the better it takes an edge, the finer the edge it can take, the easier it is to strop. Like there's just so many benefits to it when it's done very well at a relatively high HRC. Now I'm not saying it has to be insane high HRC, but I think you don't want to lean towards the softer side. I think you should lean towards the harder side. And I think that if they did that, they would see a massive jump in sales, because I do think that there is a large percentage of people that won't buy certain companies' knives, and I'm specifically talking about Italian knives, because of that reason. So that's something that they could address. And I'm not saying all their steels, but specifically, I think they ran their MagnaCut soft. They ran their M390 soft. So, MagnaCut 63, 64 for pocket knives. If you're going to argue with me about 62, I think that belongs on 61, 62 is for like a fixed blade. But anyways, with M390, I would say 62 is the optimal range, 61, 62 at the very least. A lot of times we see it 58 to 60, which is absolutely soft for M390. M390 does not hold an edge nowhere near what it does when it's, at a higher HRC. And I know that helps them keep the cost down. I'm sure there's a lot of other reasons, but I'm telling you, man, when you're spending money on a premium knife, the guys who do that pay attention to these things, as at least a large majority of them do. Some people might not care so much, but why not please the people that do care? Because the people that don't care aren't going to care anyways. Now, another negative, and this is more so towards just Italian knives, period. I spoke about the HRC thing. I do think that that's an issue with Italian knives. But another thing is consistency. Now, I got to give Giant Mouse credit, because the past year or 2 years, I've noticed them being very, very consistent. So good job on them for doing that. I have one example in the past year where that was not the case. I have one example where I don't know how it left the factory. There was just a lot of issues with it, and I had multiple examples to compare it to, and it wasn't the same. So what I'm trying to say is, when you have multiple models of the same model, you want them to be as consistent as possible, as close to each other as possible. Obviously, there's going to be some tiny variations, but you don't want certain things to be acceptable. You want them as tight as possible, because like if you're doing quality control and you have 5 guys doing your quality control, and all 5 guys have a different opinion about detent, well, then you're going to have 5 different detents across the board. You're going to have one with a weak detent, one with a strong detent, one with a good detent. Like, it's just going to be too much variation. So you should have one standard and spread that across the board and say, this is the standard, and you can't vary from that. Now, like I said, they've been doing a really good job, so I'm not trying to say that they're not, but Italian companies, period, I think that's one thing. I think they allow certain things to be more acceptable than maybe other companies as far as variations between models. So that's just something, I'm going to criticize, even though Giant Mouse has been doing a really good job. Anyways, I'm ranting, and I know this video has gone on long enough. I freaking love it. I absolutely love it. So great job, Giant Mouse. You guys absolutely killed this design. I hope they're all just like this one. I hope everybody's example is very similar to this one as far as fit, finish, detent, and action goes. It does feel just like the one I tried at Blade Show, so happy to see that. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.